Hey guys, first of all, I hope all of you had a very enjoyable Easter, if you celebrate Easter that is. Mine was pretty good. I actually asked for some new Marmot intro ideas on Twitter yesterday, and while some of the suggestions provided were pretty good, others were, well, questionable at best. But I did get some pretty good new ideas, so thank you for everybody who provided some input. But let's start with today's actual topic. There's one subject that comes up time and time again, no matter how often it's covered. So I'll cover it now once and for all, hopefully. That subject, what else could it be, is UIs. I get asked every day about what add-ons I use and how I configure them and all that stuff. But really, what I use shouldn't be of any concern. What is, however, important to know are the key parts to making a healer UI efficient and good. Which add-ons in particular you use to do the job is completely up to you. First of all, and most importantly, you want raid frames. Raid frames represent at the very least the health bar of every single raid member in a compact and easy to see format. While tanks and probably even DPS still want to keep raid frames somewhere on their screen to, have a general overview of how the raid's doing, they are absolutely essential to a healer. You want your raid frames to occupy a central space in your UI, but make sure they are not obstructing your character in any way. Below your character's feet or off to the side a little are ideal spots to place your raid frames. Healers most commonly use Grid, Voodoo, or Healbot for raid frames. Less commonly used because they are not specially directed at healers and harder to set up are Pitbull and X-Pearl. You also want to set up your raid frames to very visibly show common raid instance debuffs, such as Lord Merga's Bone Spikes, so you can immediately react to people taking damage. Also fairly important, at least in a raiding environment, is a boss mod. Most commonly used are Big Wigs and Deadly boss mods. Those alert you of boss abilities that are important to keep track of, and especially important when you're concentrated on other things, such as your raid frames. While this is not an absolute necessity if you're quick on your toes, most raiding guilds will require you to have a boss mod of some sort. Along with that, you may want to choose to deviate from the default interface when it comes to player, target, and focus frames to increase the visibilities of very important health and cast bars. I personally like having the boss we're fighting to be set as my focus, so I can observe what ability the boss in question is casting and react to it quicker. Pitbull and X-Pearl commonly get that job done. Pitbull is harder to customize but provides a lot more options, and X-Pearl is simpler to use but, well, plain. Some people, like me, like to adjust their ability bars and put them all over the screen in more convenient positions than the default UI allows you to. This is in no way necessary, but it does allow you to open up more space in your interface. There are a lot of good bar mods out there. Most commonly used I hear of are Bartender and Dominoes. Also, it's very useful to keep track of your own procs and cooldown timers. Various add-ons do this, but my personal favorites are Power Hours and Forte Exorcist. Power Hours lets you create your own icons for any buff, debuff, proc, or duration that you want to measure, so if you want to track anything without actually moving your eye from your raid frames, Power Hours would be a good choice. Forte Exorcist automatically tracks all of your cooldown and buff timers and aligns them on a simple bar for your convenience. This is obviously much simpler to use, but provides less customization. Both add-ons do work well in conjunction, and as mentioned, others get the job done well as well. I just have no personal experience with them. More or less optional add-ons for healers are damage and healing meters as well as stat meters. Those are more useful for DPS, but they do provide some interesting info and statistics if you can find room in your UI for them. Most commonly used for damage meters are SCADA and Recount, and Omen is that meter. Another very useful add-on to have, but by no means essential, is Raiding Buster. This will give you additional info on every piece of gear in the game based on your current gear and talents, so you can see at a glance if an item drop is actually going to be a decent upgrade for you or not. It saves you a lot of math and manual comparison. It minimizes incidents where you take a piece of gear and then realize it really was a side grade at best. Those are the very basic add-ons that help you heal better, in my personal opinion, and hence the game experience. But as mentioned before, this boils down to personal style and needs. If you feel that one of those helpers is completely superfluous for you, don't bother using it, of course. You want to try and keep your UI as clean and uncluttered as you possibly can while still having it provide essential information, else you're just hindering your own gameplay. And no matter what else you decide to use, since you're going to be staring at your rate frames a good bit of the time, make sure they're in a spot that at the same time lets you observe your own feet, so you minimize standing and bad stuff on the ground. And also, to cover this once and for all, here's the list of all the add-ons I use in alphabetical order. My UI is covered in depth at textbot.com's UI section and is available for download on wellinterface.com. All it takes is a Google search. And lastly, if you have a question addressed at me that are not UI related, I'm most likely to see it and reply on Twitter. I hope this was a useful overview for some of you, and I also hope that you all have a great week to follow, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye. I personally like failing at this. Oh my gosh. Unreal. Yeah.